Hello.
All right, guys. I'm gonna have a conversation with Dr. Cornel West. I'm gonna bring him in live now, guys. Let's do this. Dr. West, how you doing, sir?
That's my dear brother right there. That's brother Tim Black himself, the one and only, my brother. How's your precious one doing? Sister Sheila staying strong, huh?
Yeah, she's standing strong, brother. Always, always, doctor.
Lord. I heard last night you visited your precious mama, though, man.
Yeah,
How's she doing?
man.
She holding on all right?
She's doing just fine, brother. She's a handful. She's a handful. She's something
You
else,
were
doctor.
blessed, brother. My
Man,
mother's gone, but she's
Mm.
in my heart forever. Part of her afterlife is at work in my life, though, brother.
Mm.
Indeed, indeed. But
Wow,
it's just
brother.
always a blessing to be in conversation. Brother, you holding up the bloodstained banner. Shoot, this campaign been going for what, 14 months now, almost. We still swinging like Duke Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald. That's
Wow.
still
How's
swinging.
Dr. Anahita doing?
She's doing well. Appreciate you asking. Appreciate you
There you
asking.
go.
Definitely.
Much
She's staying
respect.
strong too. But brother, we getting ready to go into a deep tunnel. We already been in the deep one, but it's getting darker and dimmer and grimmer. But we got to keep a smile and style, keep that sunshine in our heart, and let our little light shine the way Fetty Lou Hamer sang about it. That's what
right.
we talking about.
We got to, man. We have to,
got
Dr.
though,
West, man. I'm telling you, man.
We got to, though,
It's
brother.
crazy. I was
It's
like,
wild. It's so wild out here, man. Everybody's for sale.
mm.
Everything is for sale. Hard to know what's real. What's the difference between what is for real and what's posing for what's real, the semblance versus the actual thing. And the beautiful thing is, man, you just got to be true to yourself. You know what I mean?
Man, Dr. West, I'm like, what I'm going to talk to Dr. West about? I'm just going to talk to Dr. West.
That's right. We just let it flow. Brother to brother, we just let it flow.
Man, it's so much going, brother. Shootings and dropping out and dropping in. And Joe Biden just gave a speech just as we was, as I was making this, setting up the live stream. Here he come.
I'll tell you.
You know what I'm saying? So.
But see, the thing is, man, it's been true for black folk 400 years, but, we got to be equipped to be able to keep track of all of the layers of lies and the levels of crime without allowing ourselves to get so deadened on the inside that we simply want to just be on the plantation because it looked like the overlords and the paylords of the plantation are almighty. And they're not almighty. They might be mighty, but they're not almighty. And that's very important. I mean, look at Brother Biden. You and I know if he was a black brother, he would be a retired used car salesman still in Scranton, Pennsylvania, man. He's the epitome of white male mediocrity that went to the top.
There it is.
So that's affirmative action. When it was white, to use Brother Ira Kelton Nelson, Jewish brother, wrote the book, Still Telling the Truth. When affirmative action was white, you had white male mediocrity at the top. You still do. I saw it at Harvard. I saw it at Princeton. I saw it at Yale. I mean, not all of them, but you got a whole lot of them. Nepotism and all kind of stuff. Now people talking about Biden got poetry in his veins, and people talking about how great he is and an excellent president and the most transformative. Get off the crack pipe. He couldn't even pass the John Lewis voting rights bill for black people and black women had pushed him over the finish line. But our memories are so short, man, that they would sell us. It's almost like, Pat Boone is stealing from Bo Diddley, but Pat Boone is the real thing. Hey.
Right. Let them tell it.
Exactly.
Yeah, let them tell
you
it.
got to lie on Biden like that. And it goes on. Then we get the black folk, they on the plantation too. They want to tell the lies about how magnificent he was. The man is a genocide denier, a genocide enabler. 15,000 Palestinian children killed in a matter of months, but he's the great president, such a good man, such a decent man of high character. Please.
Yeah.
Please, my God, it's unbelievable. And among so-called progressives saying that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The squad and Brother Bernie, there ought to be shame of them. Just
Mm.
tell the truth.
Nope.
Be
I lost.
honest.
Yeah.
That's why I appreciate you coming out of your intellect and mind, coming out of your soul, coming out of your heart, but also you coming out of the history, brother. You see
I'm
what I mean?
trying, Dr. West.
Oh, yes. It ain't a
Yeah.
question of what people right now with the quick would say.
Mhm.
What would Harriet Tubman say, man?
Yeah.
What would Fannie Lou Hamer say?
Right.
What would Ella Baker say? And that's in relation to Kamala, Obama. I mean, anybody. We're not zeroing in just on individual people. We're talking about what the standards are.
Yeah.
And when we start with the Trump, the gangster Trump on the right side with the fascism, the lies coming out so quick, it's almost impossible to keep track. Ain't no doubt about that. We've known that year after year after year, but you can't fight fascism and its lies and crimes with more lies and crimes as the only counter.
Yeah.
If that's the case, fascism always wins. It always wins. It might not win at this one election, but if all you can come forward with is just more lies, Jesus, Biden is the most pro-working class president.
Yeah.
He marched for 86 seconds on the picket line, the UAW, said a few words and got off. He had just crushed the strike of the railway workers.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Oh, Lord. His relation to the credit card industry in Delaware, his relation to Wall Street, his relation to Silicon Valley. Just tell the truth. And that's just in light, of course, of a deep commitment to justice for poor and working people. So I just don't want you to ever get discouraged, but be encouraged of great courage in terms of holding up a bloodstained banner. Every generation, brothers and sisters, just like you, been lied on, trashed, misunderstood, misconstrued, but you kept at the calling. You kept at your vocation, brother. That's crucial, because I can tell you one thing, man. Part of the problem right now, this is stressful too with Black folks, see, that we are confusing movement on the plantation, even in high places on the plantation, with being on the Underground Railroad. So people think, okay, we still on the plantation, and who is the permanent government of the plantation? The big donors, the billionaires, the big money. Biden, I was like George Washington because I had the character to make a choice for the best of my nation. No, you held on for dear life, and they pulled the money on you, and the big folk on the plantation pushed you off, and you thought you was an overlord, and you discover the paylords and other overlords push you out.
That's
and now
right.
You want to act as if you some grand selfless figure. No.
Exactly. You should have. So you heard his speech, Dr. West.
Oh, I heard the
some of it. Yeah.
You're lucky I had cognac and my Bible around in order to just preserve my sanity, man.
Brother West, he has no shame at all, man. He took credit. He taking credit for saying he's going to try to end the war in Gaza. He took credit. He said no wars. The first time in history we're not at war any place in the world. America right now, that's what he said.
When was the last time he kept track of AFRICOM and the U.S. military presence on the continent, trying to make sure that U.S. corporate interests are fulfilled, and all of the collaborators, which includes African dictators, African elected officials working with the American empire in that way? But I mean, what is so crucial about what you do, and this is true for, Chris Hedges and Sister Amy Goodman, a few others, is that the media is just so empty and vacuous, because those lies will be told, and the corporate media acts as if they're just the state propaganda.
Yeah.
They're propaganda for the government.
Absolutely.
So we saw it with Fox, with the gangster activities and neo-fascist rule of Trump. Now with the Democrats, where's the critical voices? Where's any kind of critique?
Good.
It's a sad thing, though, brother. It's
This
a
is very
very,
sad.
very sad thing. But the reality is, and we saw this with the gangster Netanyahu there in Congress, that both parties, of course, are beyond redemption, but neither party really gives a damn about precious Palestinians, man.
They don't give a damn about anything though, except money though, Dr. West.
Well, it's a Wu-Tang Clan cream situation. It's the cash rules everything around me
Absolutely.
situation. It's true. But I mean, the idea, I mean, if those 15,000 precious Palestinian babies were 15,000 precious white babies or precious Jewish babies, the Congress would have the exact opposite response.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's the racism of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's the deep racism of it. See, and if black folk were engaging in a genocide, if Palestinians were, if Muslims were, if Arabs were, oh man, all of us be open target on our backs, man.
Absolutely.
So all we saying is let's just try to tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, in regard to Sister Kamala's moment, now of course we're getting the recycling of it, just like Obama back in 2008, where people are saying, well, if you don't side with her immediately, instinctively, then either you're not black or you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Well, I saw last night when you had to straighten out Brother Isaac Hayes III, tell you don't love your mama, you don't love your wife, you don't love your sister, you don't love your daughter. You say, please, this is stupid below the belt. People think critically for themselves. Now, I'll say this, and you tell me what you think, though, brother, that for me, anytime I see black folk with smiles on their faces, joy coming out of their hearts and souls, I feel good for a moment. It could be in the church. It could be in the mosque. It could be on the corner, in the barbershop, in the beauty salon, in the nightclub, to see this black joy coming. But then the question becomes now, what is it oriented toward?
Right.
Does it have something to do with truth and justice as opposed to just lies and illusion?
Yeah.
You see? So because you really love black folk, you don't just love them for that one day or that one season.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
You love them before they were born because you love their grandmamas. You love their children, their grandchildren, and you see, no lie lives forever. America specializes in predicating its project on the efficacy of lies. Du Bois talks about that in his great essay, The Souls of White Folk. He published in 1920. We know his book, The Souls of Black Folk, but his book, The Souls of White Folk, is the reading we need right now. And that's 1920. That's 17 years later. When he says America's predicated on the efficacy of lives, who will be around to tell the truth? Here come Brother Tim Black and the others. None of us have a monopoly on truth, but we speaking the truth based on the love of the folk over past, present, and future, not just this moment of frenzy. You see, not at all. So though you and I, we say, okay, we pray for Sister Harris, we pray for her family. She's certainly on treacherous terrain in terms of running, but the question becomes, what is her character in relation to policy?
Right.
What is her history in relation to those who run the Democratic Party plantation, Wall Street, Pentagon, Silicon Valley, and foreign policy? And Gaza is the lowest moral bar you can possibly have. If you have somebody who is rationalizing and justifying genocide, you can rest be assured they don't have the highest character, man. They're cowardly. There's no courage. Courage is the enabling virtue of all the other virtues. All the other virtues don't mean nothing if you're a coward. And if all you're concerned about is your career and your next move, then they know they got you. Because there's no courage there. There's conformity and complacency and complicity there, but no courage.
No
and
courage.
If we're at a moment now where to be courageous is to be viewed as crazy or sick or out of touch with reality, You say, wow, that's a pretty low point.
Yeah. They'll tell you
And in
need to
many
have your
ways,
head.
that's where we are. In many ways, that's where we are.
They'll say you need to have your head examined if you start talking courageously about what your expectations are. You know what I'm saying? It's like something's wrong with that brother.
There's something wrong with this, brother.
Something wrong with this,
man.
brother.
You're not into venality and trickery and chicanery. Everybody else is. Why? Because everybody's for sale.
Yeah.
I was listening to a sermon by one of the great geniuses of the 20th century. His name is Reverend Manuel Scott Sr. He was preaching a sermon on high riches in Christ. He said, people need to just go home and write on a piece of paper all the things that they highly value that money can't buy. Just write it down.
Yeah.
Now, what would be on that list? Because most folk, when they go home to write about something they really want, it's all tied to cash. It's all tied to money. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But the sparkle in your kids' eyes, money can't buy that. The memory of your grandmama, money can't buy that. The quality relationship of your loved ones, your friendships, money can't buy that.
There it is.
You see, but in a capitalist society, that commodification is everywhere, marketization everywhere, and that means people become nothing but just sellouts. So selling out becomes so normal and so natural that when folk come along and say, "That's not me," they think you're crazy.
Yeah, they do.
They think you lost your mind.
You unprofessional. You unprofessional, Dr. West.
You're unprofessional. You're cutting against the grain. I mean, it's like, you know, you got people in the Democratic Party, you know, talking, yeah, you know, we got to talk to Brother West and see what kind of deal we can make with him, because if we give him just a little this and a little that, and he drop out the race and he don't have to talk about truth, justice, and love no more, jump on the bandwagon, and the Kamala Harris people got things for. Hey, you got the wrong black man.
What?
Jesus. If I'm a Jesus-loving free black man, I got integrity and decency. I'll talk to anybody. I'll never sell my soul in that way. Well, if not, you're going to get crushed by the Democratic Party machine. Oh, really? Really? So now you're threatening. You see, I mean, what are we talking about? We saw this during the Obama years. Me and Brother Tavis and the others. Y'all talking about poverty. You got a poverty bus for them to put the pressure. You must be paid by Fox News.
Yeah.
Our condemnation of Fox News is systematic.
There it is.
Systematic. And it's true. If there's any racism or sexism against Sister Kamala Harris, we oppose that.
That's right. We call that out too.
We protect her in terms of racist attack. That's like my sister, like my mama. Same is true with sexist attack. But at the same time, if she is enabling genocide, if she is neglecting poor people, if she, as the top cop in California, had a history of criminalizing the parents because the children not showing up on time, or keeping brothers and sisters in jail because they still needed their labor when they could have been released, she got to be accountable for that. Why you got to bring that up? Because it's the truth. We don't need to talk about the truth. We just want to win.
Right. Win what, Dr. West? What they gonna win?
Jesus Christ.
Dr. West, why are you running for president, sir? Tell me, Doctor, what made you want to do this? Where were you when you decided, ooh, I want to get involved in this quagmire. I want to jump into the pot of boiling toxicity. What made you do that? I don't know what you was listening to. What happened?
Well, I tell you one thing, brother. I've been running for justice for 55 years, just like I've been running for Jesus for 62. And 55 years, I jumped into the toxic. See, when we had black studies in high school when Martin was shot. They tried to push us out of high school, act like we turning the table. We were just concerned about what? Truth and justice. Tell the truth about the greatness of black people. Tell the truth about our history, our culture, our music, our style, and so forth. Same was true when I got to Harvard. Cutting against the grain. We got all kind of battles going on. Same is true as a professor, right? You know,
Yeah.
Tried to kick me out of Harvard twice.
Yeah.
How come you're too concerned about hip hop, and hip hop ain't got nothing to do with Harvard? Oh, really? Really? You heard Rakim, the John Coltrane of hip hop? Have you heard Rhapsody? Have you heard KRS-One? What about a little J. Cole? And we ain't even got to Tupac or Biggie yet.
Right. Right.
Lord. And the relation between those voices and the voices of Toni Morrison and James Baldwin and Langston Hughes and Wallace Thurman. We ain't got to Jerry Allen on the piano with Mary Lou Williams and Marvin Gaye. We can go on and on. That's the voices and figures of a great people. So when you fall in love with those folk, everywhere you go, if you're true to them, you're going to get in trouble. It could be Harvard, it could be Princeton, it could be City College, it could be in your church. Because even this is a challenge among black folk. Black folk got a lot of white supremacy inside of them. They got a lot of fear. They got a lot of insecurity. They got a lot of sense of questioning themselves and doubting themselves. That's what white supremacy does to the souls of precious black folk. And the only thing that breaks that kind of fear is the love. The only thing that breaks that kind of fear is precisely the belief in themselves that comes from somebody believing in them. And you and I have said over and over again, we never, ever, ever love black people in order for black people to love us back. We love them because they're worthy of being loved. So when you get down and out, people lying on you, lying on your loved ones and so forth, first, you'll have your moment of rage. Ain't nothing wrong with rage, brother.
Yeah.
But you don't stay there. You see?
Try not to.
No,
right.
No,
not good for you.
Have the rage
right.
because you care, because you love the folk who are being talked about.
Right.
You know, somebody talk about my mama, brother. I'm a Christian, but I ain't a pacifist. I'll kick they so-and-so in the name of Jesus.
Right.
But I ain't gonna stay there because I know I need to be used for something that has a long run effect. Over time, putting on the whole armor, being on that underground railroad, not staying on any plantation. It could be the Republican plantation with its fascism, the Democratic plantation. It could be the Green Party plantation. All of these are places that have their forms of conformity.
Yeah.
And
Dr.
none
West,
of those parties.
Dr. West, what is it with this thing with Jill Stein? I know, I mean, I heard them like pushing for you to join the Green Party and join her on the ticket and give up your race. And I really, like, my audience for the most part are not really into that. But with Bob, what gets me is the audacity. Like, why come she can't run her race? Why come the Greens can't do what they do and let other people do what they do? Why is it like this? They try to micromanage you and like send like I don't know, try to send activists to try to like cajole you into doing something you don't, that you could, if you want to do it, you do it.
Right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right.
How you feel?
Well, again, you know, when Brother Deruba and Brother Kalanji called for United Front, and I'll be there. I responded immediately to them because we must have united front and solidarity across the board. But when you're talking about electoral strategies within the context of mainstream politics, and you've been at it for over a year, somebody comes along and says, I want you to drop out, or I want you to push Sister Melina Abdullah, who was one of the great freedom fighters of her generation. I say the sense of entitlement, the arrogance, the condescension. I've seen that in so many other white supremacist contexts. You know, you think, well, you wouldn't see that among the so-called white progressives, but no, we know the white progressives can be just as subject to some racist sensibilities. They're deeply anti-racist in their policies. That's a wonderful thing. And there's some magnificent folk in the Green Party. I've been working with the Green Party since 1985 when Brother Rick Wolf ran for mayor of New Haven. I was with him every minute of the way. And he's still going, one of the greatest Marxist economists of our day, right?
Okay.
And I supported him a number of times with Ralph Nader and what have you, supported Jill Stein herself.
Right.
As well. And Brother Ujamu and Bruce Dixon and others who I have respect for in a variety of different ways, they've spent even more time. But the Green Party has never put white supremacy at the center of its focus.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas everything that I think and do includes a zeroing in on the vicious legacy of white supremacy. The critique of capitalism, the critique of imperialism, the critique of patriarchy, the critique of homophobia, transphobia, whatever it is still filtered through the focus on the vicious legacy of white supremacy. And again, as I said before, that doesn't mean that anti-racist policies have not been promoted in a wonderful way by the Green Party, but it's not at the center. But when it comes to the jail as a separate issue, and I won't spend too much time on it, as you can imagine, but that just has to do with individual experience, personal interaction.
Right.
In the sense that you're working with somebody that you just can't trust. And trustworthiness is just crucial, man. You got to have folk who are reliable, folk you have certain belief in, because they came and played an important role early in the campaign. And then once you really got a chance to know them, and once we had interactions and Anahita had interactions and so forth, brother, it was not a pretty tale at all.
Right.
See, it just wasn't. And people don't need to know the details. I just draw my conclusions and keep moving.
Why come that can't be enough, though? Why isn't that just like, sometimes things don't work out? It's right. Okay, things don't work out.
That's exactly right. That's precisely it, though, brother.
Is it
because the issues are so much bigger?
Dr. West, I feel like it's just getting for views at this point.
Well, that's so much what it is. Because when we, again, I mean, part of the challenge of all of us is when you live in such a sick and decadent capitalist empire and culture, everything is about money. So even the independent media that claims to be independent is still dependent on eyeballs. Yeah. You see what I mean? It's still dependent on people that you try to convince you to have some kind of attention to you. And that's understandable because none of us are outside of the capitalist system.
I get it. Believe me, I understand. I get it.
There's other ways. That's one reason why I have such great admiration for you, though, brother, because I know the cost that you have paid, the burden that you've had to bear in terms of dealing with this capitalist commodified culture, and yet still being true to who you are as a human being and as a free Black man. And
talk about that. Yeah, talk about that, Dr. West. When you say you're a free Black man, how? Give me an instance of how you express that. How was that like? How was that demonstrated in your life? What is the instance that hey, that right there, I'm showing you this is what being a free Black man is? That's
right. Well, I gave you two examples, one in regard to Harvard, one in regard to right now with various political institutions. When they come and want to have a dialogue and want to offer money and status and title and say, cut back on what you say.
Yes.
Or endorse this candidate, get on this bandwagon, and we'll give you X, Y, or Z. Same was true at Harvard when I had to die. I don't want you to talk about hip hop. Hey, I'm making hip hop records. I'm in the studio and Andre 3000 and Prince and Jill Scott and Gerald Levert and Talib Kweli and Rod Digger. And I'm making another album. No, if you make that other album, that's going to be worse. My album came right out. Boom. Street now started with Sketches of My Culture. Here comes Street Knowledge, and then never forget double album. Oh, this Black man and lost his mind. Now I'm just a Jesus loving free Black man.
There it is.
Well, it makes it like, well, you don't want to be at Harvard. Hey, Harvard ain't everything to me.
Wow. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus might be everything. We won't go into that right now. My mama and my family might be everything, but Harvard ain't everything to me. Good God Almighty. And that's just two brief examples, but it's been true so often across the board. Same is true in regard to Obama. Cut back on the critiques of Obama, and they'll be able to bring you in because the Black middle class and the Black professional managerial class from Martha's Vineyard to Baldwin Hills, they got all kind of opportunities for you. They got all kind of modalities for you, options for you. Just come right on in and let us in some way dictate the framework that you speak your truth. No,
Yeah.
Now, Curtis Mayfield gonna sing what's in his heart and soul. Don't tell him what he got to say. Well, if he did it this way, he'd have more records. He ain't gonna do that. How come? Because he's Curtis.
That's right.
Because he was raised and reared by a magnificent grandmother who was a televangelist who taught him integrity and honesty and taught him to tune his guitar just to the black notes on the piano. He's the only guitar player in the history of guitar player who did that. He got that from his grandmother. And he started creating sounds. It was hard for Chicago, country, and the world to understand how he did it. A little help from Johnny Pate, who was his great organizer and producer and so forth for his music. But I'm just using him as an example because it's the great musicians, the Coltrane's and the Sarah Vaughns and the Billie Holidays, you see. They had to deal with their plantations, the plantations of the club owners, plantations of the white managers that stole most of their money and so forth, right? But they didn't have plantations in their minds because they would tell them, you got to play this. You got to go in this direction. Well, let me think it through. I got my integrity. I got my name. I got my reputation. I'm going to be true to Duke. I'm going to be true to Sarah. I'm going to be true to Billy. But I know I've got to be able to deal with these club owners because I got to get access to the clubs in order to get groceries, pay my bills and things. So all of us have to walk on that tightrope. Yes. And that's another reason why we need each other. I mean, of course, you're blessed to have such Sheila and things. I mean, I know you on your knees and got your Bible every day, though, brother. You got high quality folk around you. You know what I mean? That makes a difference, man.
Yeah. But Dr. West, you know, I've been meaning to ask you about immigration.
Yes.
And I know, like, my opinions about it. It seemed like it cuts against a progressive conversation because somewhere along the line, I decided that my blackness and what was going on with black people kind of it took priority over the kumbaya type thing. So for me, I'm looking at black people being 14% of the population, being owning 2% of the wealth.
That's right.
Tonight, Joe Biden was bragging about how the racial wealth gap is closed. Meanwhile, it's bigger than it's ever been. He said it's closing, but in actuality, everybody's money went up except ours, really. So we're still far behind. We gained some ground, but white folks gained more ground. So we gained some wealth, but so did they. They just gained more. So that's what the readjustment was.
Real. And then 13% of the population, 40% of the homeless and unhoused.
There it is. There it is. So Dr. West, where are you on immigration, brother? When we say, okay, we need to do something about black people's placement in this society, and I say, well, we have to look at immigration as well. What's your retort for that? Because I think me and you might have different opinions about it.
Well, the thing about it is that, again, you always start on the moral and spiritual tip, which is that anybody who's trying to get into the country ought to be treated humanely, whether they're able to get in or not. See, so you don't demonize them. You don't trash them and their families. And you try to be sensitive to their context. So many of the folk, when people think about the border, they don't think about the Canadian border. That border is as open as it can be. As open as it can be.
Good point.
How come? Different dynamics. Vanilla folk, for the most part, going back and forth. It's not a whole lot of poor folk making their way. How come? Because Canada has a way of life and has a system where people gain access to resources, so they want to stay home for the most part. Now, you got a number of Canadians who make their way, especially professional managers and intellectuals and so forth. But most of the masses of Canadians not. When you look at the southern border, what do you see? First, you see U.S. policy of war against drugs that increased and expanded drug cartels that created context of poverty and violence so intense, anybody wants to get away. And where can they go? Well, the closest one is the American Empire, because the American Empire has more resources disproportionately than any empire in the country and in the history of the world. And then, of course, historically, so many, when they're coming from Mexico, Texas used to be Mexico. California used to be Mexico, right? The Mexican War of 1846 was immoral, criminal, and stole 50% of Mexico. Now, the indigenous peoples, they were still subjugated by the Spanish, the Mexicans, the European Americans up to this very day. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean then that we don't understand the tensions that would be generated in the capitalist system between Black folk who are always at the bottom, given the vicious legacy of white supremacy inside our souls as well as in our structures and institutions too much. Not all of us, but too much. So you're going to have a pitting of those two groups, and that tension is real. There's no doubt, because the struggle of low-wage jobs is such that one group can slowly attempt to move out another group, or those folk at the top can reinforce pitting them against each other rather than confronting the most powerful together. That's the best of what the trade union movement ought to be doing, but the trade union movement got its racist legacies.
Yes.
Make sexist too, but deep racist legacies it's got to come to terms with, see? And so for me, when I think about immigration, I start with that context, though, brother. I start with that context. And if, in fact, we were able to come up with policies, both in this country, in which Black people had right to health care, right to house. As you know, I'm calling for abolition of poverty, abolition of homelessness, $27 minimum wage, higher in most places, you see. Then it would be less of a problem of the possible clash between the newcomers who are here and the folk who've been here for a while. But then I'll also stay in contact with the context of the folk who are leaving. See, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, their lives are deeply influenced by U.S. corporations and U.S. influence on policies that make it difficult for them to stay at home given the escalating violence that is at work in their poor communities. So that each nation is not an island. They're interdependent in a variety of different ways, you see. So I believe in the abolition of ICE, because I think ICE is just a militarized, that's like Cop City on steroids when it comes to immigrants. I'm against Cop City, Atlanta, any other place. But I do think that in the end, there is a distinction between those folk who are trying to come in legally and those folk who are trying to get in because they are being pushed. So I believe that I have a deep commitment to asylums and so forth. But I don't have a wholesale open border policy like some of my leftist comrades do. I do think that there's going to be some need of drawing a distinction. And there, the question becomes, how is that worked out in such a way that the newcomers are in no way militarized, criminalized, and they are treated humanely, and there's connections with the context from which they come, not just the governments, but various community institutions and organizations in Mexico and El Salvador with churches and so forth to try to create a regional plan so that persons are able to gain access to resources, because people are coming not because America is so great, because America's been so greedy. Its policies have been so greedy that it pushes people. Most people want to stay home, but if their child is being harassed, if they don't have access to food, then they might try to make their way into Texas, of course. And I tell you, the sad thing is, like, you get Trump and others. How long have Trump's people been here? His father, German, just got here in the 20s. His mother's
20s and 30s. Yeah. A lot of them.
You see, so the folks who just get here, they become the definitive definers of what an American is and who ought to get here. We've been here 12 generations.
There it is.
12 generations, and still at the bottom.
It's a difficult topic, because you're right. It's not.
It is
many different variations of it.
Brother. Very, very much so. It is a tough issue in that regard.
You know, when brothers are pointing out what's happening in Chicago and New York, for instance, Dr. West, and there are people that are homeless, and they're watching other people, migrants, come in and get housing,
access to resources and housing and so forth. That's absolutely.
It's difficult to respond to them, and and tell them, well, America's meddling with Latin America, and America's doing. People don't want to hear that.
No. What the thing is that if you can't give your citizens what they deserve,
right?
You see, and you allow folk from the outside to come in and gain access to something that the citizens deserve, you rightly gonna have a problem.
Right.
I just don't want to pit the newcomers who have been so victimized with we black folk who have been so terrorized and traumatized and victimized for these 12 generations. And yet, given the way things are, some of that tension and some of that clashing will take place because so much of the wealth in the country, though, brothers, is hemmed at the top. As you know, 1% got 90%, three individuals got 50% of the population. That kind of grotesque wealth inequality, you're gonna have tremendous battles in that regard. That's another reason why reparations to me is crucial, because I really do believe that reparations is a kind of appeal to some sense of truth and justice about the country, so that we can make sure that black folk have access to resources.
And the kick, and Dr. West, definitely want to cut that conversation off, but
sure,
it's tough from my vantage point, brother, because I understand the plight, I understand what's going on, but I also want people to realize America had the money to take care of migrants. They could have chose to spend it bettering these communities, these poor white and black communities, black and white communities. They chose not to. It's not, they had the money. They found the money somehow. So,
you're right though, brother.
You know what I mean? So
right.
that's been a nagging thing. I've seen some people that kind of, they kind of, cooled off on me because of that. But I'm not trying to villainize migrants who come here legally, who just try to escape to get a better life. But it's not as cut and dry as people want it to be. I don't think it is. Because America, these businesses are choosing these workers.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
I mean, that's where you got a lot of right-wing Republicans who believe in free markets and want the labor to come in and will be so willing to hire some of the precious newcomers because they are so weak and vulnerable at the lowest rates that U.S. citizens, whatever color, disproportionately black and brown, would look at and say, well, wait a minute. Now, this looks like outright gross exploitation. Well, it is.
It is.
That's how the whole system evolved. That's how you ended up in part getting Trump, you see, because when you had neoliberalism was nothing but a class war against poor and working people, disproportionately hitting us, right? When the industries left and went to Mexico and China and other places all around the world, and all of those jobs caved in, the kind of thing C.D. Vance talks about and ends up moving in a right-wing populist crypto-fascist direction.
Right.
But what he's talking about is something very real. When you lose those industrial jobs, because capitalists at the top go to other places to exploit laborers where they can gain access to cheap labor, then folk were left dangling. Well, where did they go? What could they do? What skills did they have access to? And they can either choose to have a critique of neoliberal greed or the capitalist greed that neoliberalism justified. They can critique and follow Bernie, or they can critique and follow Trump.
Right.
And Vance. And as you know, a lot of the people did both. They tried Bernie first.
Yeah.
And Bernie ends up capitulating to the neoliberals, Hillary, Biden. And I tell you, it's hard to see Brother Bernie up there talking about Biden being this grand person with genocide staring him in the face, man. The Afrikaner. I remember when I was underground in the mid '80s, and they snuck me into South Africa, and I was giving talks, Alan Buzak and others, and it was interesting because for the Afrikaners, They had social democratic, almost socialist policies, almost very low unemployment, access to housing, health care, and everything. And it looked so progressive and so egalitarian, but it was predicated on apartheid. So if all you see is Afrikaners, you think, oh my God, this trade union movement is so great, and these organized workers, and we don't have poverty. Hey, you're just looking on the vanilla side of town. Even a gangster and thug like Hitler, low unemployment, made the trains run on time, low crime for the Germans, not for the precious Jews,
right,
or the communists or the socialists or the gays, the gypsies and lesbians who were put in concentration camps. And see, America doesn't recognize, but we are in many ways a version of those two. Because people talked about the trade union movement for so long, mainly just for white men. It wasn't about your granddaddy and my granddaddy, and certainly not for my grandmother, your grandmother. Because my grandmother was a domestic maid. She's dealing with the sexual violations of the white man at home, even though my grandmother would have beat him up and beat him down in the name of Jesus. I love your Gwen and T. Rose. But they made it like, oh my God, all this progressive stuff just for them. That's a white supremacist democracy. And that's an imperial democracy, because what was going on was no democracy for the folk in Africa, no democracy for the folk in other parts of the world. Indonesia, look at the million people killed. And that's one of the things people don't want to talk about. Biden, the architect of mass incarceration. It's the most barbaric form of any prison system in the modern world. He's an architect, and these people got the nerve to say this is one of the greatest figures. Invasion of Iraq. Iraq lost 500,000 people. They don't say a mumbling word about them because they don't give a damn about the Iraqis. Well, some of us do. And then you got genocide in Gaza. We can go on and on. The invasion of Panama, the invasion of Grenada. They just forget about all it. Biden was for all of those. But he's so progressive because he's got an infrastructure bill. Spare me. Oh, he's got semiconductors. Spare me. Please, that's significant legislation. We don't put it down, but it pales in the face of the crimes he's been associated with up until this very moment. And so it just lets us know, like, wow, when it comes down, we black folk, we really don't count. We just window dressing on their plantation. Even when we have presidents and vice presidents, we don't have real power.
Right.
So let's just be honest about it and then see what we can do to make it better. But don't proceed based on lies. Now, this is not said in any way out of a sense of hatred or envy. Brother Tim and Brother Cornel, they just want to be in the White House so they can go to those parties. And hey, you got the wrong two brothers.
Right.
Jeez, I'd rather be in Madeire's restaurant in South Central listening to the Isley brothers sing "Here We Go Again" than in some goddamn White House. No, you got the wrong two brothers. We're not constituted in that way.
What do you think that Kamala Harris has a shot against Trump?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. You see, things are changing so quick, man. It's very hard to say that the whole process of vetting and critical examination. Of course, again, she's going to be so unjustly and viciously attacked, and I don't like that. I don't like the attack on any black person, black sister, or even when I say black, I mean in the larger Pan-African sense. A father from Jamaica. You know, her father, he's one of the great scholars. You know that. Donald Harris.
Okay.
The first tenured professor in the history of Stanford in economics. He's a bad brother. He's a brilliant brother.
Did not know that.
Oh yeah, he's a Marxist economist, man. Yeah, Donald Harris was something else. He's still alive, man.
What?
He's still alive. Straight out of Jamaica. Went to University of West Indies, PhD, UC Berkeley. That's where he met Kamala's precious mother at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
But he's a brilliant brother, and I say that because, in so many ways I can imagine his intellectual and political lens through which he views all of this going on. It'd be fascinating. Fascinating. Because he's been consistently left. Of course, he loved his daughter, and so we took her to Jamaica. All of those summers, she talks about this in her autobiography and so forth.
Right.
But there's more talk about her mother from India than it is her brilliant, great scholar father from Jamaica.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And she doesn't have a connection to Negro culture until she's shaped in Oakland. She goes to the black church. She got our dear brother Amos Brown, who was himself a towering figure, pastor for 46 years or 40-something years at Third Baptist. So she then, like Obama meeting Precious Michelle and Mrs. Robinson and stuff, you get socialized and deeply influenced by the richness of black culture. But in terms of your own origins, you got India, you got Jamaica,
Right.
the years in Toronto in Canada, and a whole lot of Negroosity in Toronto. But there is at Howard, even though it's a black bourgeois version of it. But we love our black bourgeois, too. They, AKA and alphas. Okay, we know Martin King was, Danny Hathaway was an alpha. My father was an alpha. I'm an alpha. I'm with the alphas, but I'm with the brothers on the block too. Melina herself is an AKA. She's a different kind of AKA than Common. See what I mean? Toni Morrison's AKA. She's a different kind of AKA than the ones who just uncritically embrace. If they do so. I'm not saying all of them do, if they do so. So you got variety in each group, you see. But the crucial thing is you got to always focus primarily on the 25th chapter of Matthew, on the least of these.
That's right.
On the block, man.
And that's my realist, criticism of her.
That's
not
your
about,
absolutely.
That's really what it's about.
Looked at in terms of those policies and so forth.
There it is.
She becomes very much like another Obama in so many ways, deeply shaped by the powers that be. I mean, if you were to go listen to her give her speeches in front of APEC,
yeah,
it's not an encouraging thing, though, man. It really isn't. You sit there in front of those folk who have been perpetrating such a unbearable apartheid-like regime and occupation, and she can't even mention their names.
Over $5 million from APAC.
5.3 million.
There you go.
Flowing.
There it is.
I know you do all your homework, brother. 5.3 flowing. So you say, hey, now again, for somebody who really, really deeply believes in their heart in occupation, apartheid, and so forth, which is to say, basically right-wing neo-fascists. If you just really believe that, then that's one thing. But if you don't believe it, but you don't say nothing about it because you're getting money,
yeah,
that's what I have no patience for, me. See what I mean? If I run into somebody with the Klan, you say, hey, they got those sheets on and things. They believe what they believe. We're gonna have to just, we're gonna duke this out. But if you sit next to a cat in his suit and he really got white sheets on his mind, but he acting like he's a white liberal.
Right.
Dangerous, man. Dangerous.
Very dangerous.
You don't know who's who. You don't know who to trust or what. Hey, we've been dealing with this for a long time. Our biggest challenge right now, though, man, we have to have persons who exemplify the best of a great black people. And there's greatness and cowardliness cannot occupy the same space.
Right.
I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how good your music sound. I don't care how you dance. Moral and spiritual greatness and cowardliness do not exist. That's why it's 365 times in the Bible. What does it say? Be not afraid. Wow. Be not afraid. It's better to be dead than afraid. It's better to be a corpse than a coward in our tradition. And that's high standards, because all of us are going to fall short of it. But at least we know what the standards are. We know what the North Star are. This sister was not a coward. She could have gone down one time and say, okay, I've done my best. Now time for me to kick it at Martha's Vineyard for a few months. Yeah, I made my contribution, guys.
Right, I did my thing. Right,
I did my thing. I snatched some of those Negroes down there, and some of them wanted to turn me in and turn against me. I had to have my gun and so forth. Hey, Harriet, how come you keep going down there with your Bible? Because I love these Negroes. I love these people. I had to get my brother. Now I'm getting my other brothers who I don't have blood connection to immediately. That's the kind of love we talk. That's the love supreme that we talk about. We have to have persons to exemplify this to Black folks, so Black folk don't think that selling out is just the only option.
Or that symbolism is everything. Symbolism, and we were on a trajectory, Dr. West, where the ADOS movement, Dr. Yvette Cornel and Antonio Moore, that they were ushering in there. You got Tariq and his brand with the FBA was having an impact. And then what happens? We get Kamala. And now it's, return to symbolism. Everybody off that. Yeah. Not everybody, but the middle of America, the middle of Black America is off that now. And they're looking at, here we go again with this Obama type nonsense, brother.
Well, we just got to push reparations, whatever conditions are. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Sister Yvette and Brother Antonio, and I get criticized for this a lot in terms of their various stands on immigration and so forth. But I do have a love for both of them, even given the fact I don't agree with them all the time. But I love the fact that they put a primacy on reparations.
Right.
Because reparations keeps alive serious commitment to truth and justice in terms of the role of not just slavery, but neo-slavery of Jim and Jane Crow, not just neo-slavery, but the forms of discrimination. And that includes even the Social Security Act, which, as you know, excluded domestic workers and agricultural laborers. That was the vast majority of Black people. So the most progressive legislation in the 20th century in America that people talk about, it left out your grandmother and my grandfather.
That's right.
You see, the white progressives need to acknowledge that. Many of them do, but not enough. Not enough. So that reparations is a way of highlighting what is distinctively and specific about the enslavement and Jim Crow treatment and Jane Crow treatment of Black people, all the way up to all the way up to the contracts when it came to which housing people could live in the suburbs. We can't sell your house to Black people, and therefore that's another form of discrimination built into the creation of suburbs and what have you. This shows how deep white supremacy cut, though, man. See, but part of our challenge, though, brother, is, I was talking about this with my team last night. I said, we can't let any of this dampen our spirit. You know, Mary Baraka wrote a wonderful essay in 1966 called The Changing Same. The Changing Same. And he was talking about how it is that the Black musical tradition, so many ways, got the same thing, like forms of blues and forms of swing and forms of improvisation, but it takes so many different forms. It's always evolving over time, but there's a sameness in it. And you see, in our movement, we got to be like our musicians. We got to have the same courage, the same compassion, the same commitment to vocation and vision, but the changing circumstances, the changing conditions, the changing landscapes. Now we're in the Kamala moment, just like we had the Obama moment and the Biden moment. But we got to understand his role in the U.S. empire and the policies on brothers and sisters in the global South and Latin America and Haiti and Caribbean and Africa and Asia. Then we got to come back to the block. We always got to keep it concrete. Folks in their neighborhood, churches, mosques, synagogues, little leagues, basketball tournaments, and so forth. And how do you make sure that they have access to the best of that changing same, of that deep love and courage and compassion and willingness to serve the people? If the young folk grow up and have no access to that at all, they may run around and think, it was something when Trump put his hand up like this. Hey, no, Tommy Smith.
Wow.
No, John Carlos. No, the Black Panther Party. Angela Davis.
Okay.
Maulana Karanga. They the ones first put a Stokely Carmichael, Willie Ricks, Ape Rat Brown right now in jail. Imam, Jamil, Abdullah Al-Hamin. They're the first ones put this up. Now they think it's Trump's now. They kind of steal the symbol from us. Wow. Hey, we got to be grounded in our history.
Wow. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah.
I mean, Brother Tavis made this deep point the other day when I was having a dialogue on the show. Definitely. He says hello to you, too. You know, I talk about you all the time with all my partners and stuff.
Tavis is the guy. He's that guy.
Well, no, all of y'all on the love train, though, brother. All of y'all on the love train, though, man.
No doubt.
Indeed.
Dr. West. So you saying it until the end, Dr. West. So what you gonna do, my brother?
Yes, absolutely, though, brother. And you think about winning, you think of 3 levels. Winning the election. We already got now 12 states. If you add 5 states in the process, is 16. We're working on before September another 12, and it looks like we may just have to have massive write-in in about 3 or 4 because it's almost impossible. They make California, New York almost impossible. So we just have to have write-in. But absolutely, we in it till the end because we are going to lay out our vision and what it means to look at the world through the vantage point of poor and working people, and especially Black, poor, and working people. And people may come up and say, oh, Brother West, I hear what you got to say. I'm going with Sister Harris. I said, hey, I ain't got nothing against that. Good God Almighty. And I'm still loving it. I love it, but I think you're wrong. I think, in fact, you're going to be duped like you were on Obama. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to love you, not going to be concerned about you. But you're going to have an alternative. This is what this campaign is about. You will have an alternative. Well, you're stealing votes. No, we're not stealing votes. People make up their own minds. I'm not entitled to any vote. No other candidate is entitled to any vote.
Right. They can't even name a Kamala Harris policy at this point.
Well, yeah, at this point, the symbolism is just, yeah, absolutely.
Look, I shudder to think what's going to happen if it doesn't work out for him. There's a lot of disappointed sisters, and for me, brother, I want to break up the duopoly. So maybe that has to be the process. They have to learn that they're using Kamala, and we'll see what happens. But
yeah, I think that one of the manifestations of the love that we have for our Black sisters, even though we might have deep disagreements at this moment, is to recognize that what we are saying and what we are doing is something that is still in their best interest in the long run.
Yeah.
In the long, and people will come back and say, no, it's not, because if Trump wins and he's a dictator and Black folk will never be able to do X and never be able to do Y. Well, first, you live in a sick country. If Trump can get 74 million people to vote for him, that's a sign of deep sickness, not just in terms of people's character, but in terms of a two-party system that is just so narrow and truncated that the only response to a Democratic Party status quo is more Trump fascism than any other left-wing alternative. See, that's part of the sickness too. And things are changing so quickly, though. But remember, it was about almost maybe because you've been so kind to me. I've been on so many times,
No doubt.
But we've had many talks where I told you, well, Biden's gonna have an LBJ moment and choose to leave. People say, "Oh, Brother West, get off the crack pipe." Well, I got the pipe, but not the crack.
Yes, sir.
I could see it. I also thought Trump would be on the way to jail. Because let's be honest, if Trump were a Black man, he would have been in jail a long time ago.
That's true.
Oh, long.
True. That's very true. Yeah.
Oh man, a Black businessman that's successful. A Black man who was highly successful in a white supremacist society will be attacked and assaulted all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And so, Trump had all kind of vulnerabilities. If he's a Black man, oh shoot, man, would have been in prison a long time.
Way too public not to be. Yeah, way too public not to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so what we have to do is we just got to sustain ourselves, not be discouraged, but be encouraged and of great courage, rooted in a deep compassion, tied to the best of our tradition, which is always one of grand vision, of freedom dreams, of integrity, even though it may not be popular,
right,
and of decency, even though you might get trashed indecently, and keep on your armor, the breastplate,
that's right,
and the sword, so that there's something inside of you that the world could never crush, ever.
Well, Dr. West, I'm hoping they bring you back on those. I saw they kind of sewed up on your appearances on CNN and MSNBC. But
it's getting more and more difficult, especially as things get closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You might say something. You might say some real stuff they don't want to hear. That's what that
say
is.
The same thing. That changing same that Baraka wrote about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the same thing we've been saying all of these years. Very, very much so. Very, very much so. But yes, in the end, though, brother, no matter what the situation is, let us never, ever, ever, ever allow the greed and the hatred and the sense of catastrophe to have the last word, man. Never.
That's it.
Never, ever.
That's it. Dr. West, it's been a pleasure as always, my brother. So great to have you back, man. And I wish you the best, and you got my vote. You already had my vote.
You have been consistent and constant, and I know it's gotten you in deep trouble, but you emerged stronger than ever. And you are a grand inspiration to me and Anahita and thousands of other folk, not just in this country. See, we're speaking to the world, man.
Yes, sir.
See, you're talking about truth and justice and love. You ain't just talking about some American. We ain't wrapping this around no flag.
That's right.
Every flag is under truth, justice, and love. Just like me as a Christian, every flag is under that cross. And that cross signifies unarmed truth and unapologetic love, rooted on the chocolate side of town, with a little swing and blues and improvisation shot through it.
Wow. Thank you for that gem, Dr. West. Cornel West. That's it. Look, CornelWest2024.com, guys. Go there. Get involved with the campaign. Vote for somebody that you won't have to take a shower after you pass the vote. Vote for somebody you'll be able to look in the mirror at yourself after you make that vote. Okay? Don't compromise your values. Vote for Dr. Cornel West. All right, brother.
Salute you, brother. Love you, though, man.
Love you too, brother. All right, y'all. That's it.
All right.
I'll talk to you, Dr. West.
Thank you, man. You stay strong now.
You too, Captain. Love you.
All right.
All right, y'all. Y'all heard it, man. Dr. West, amazing. Great conversation. We'll be back tomorrow, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. More than 10 Black Show. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you in the comment section for what you did. Holding it down, Buck. I know Buck is over there. I appreciate y'all. See you on the next one.